Call the Monday, August 26th meeting of the regular board of the Jersey Shore School District order. The roll call, please.
Mr. Berngard.
Present.
Mr. Fravel.
Here.
Dr. Pecchia.
Here.
Mrs. Stemler.
Here.
Mrs. Stover.
Here.
Mr. Schweitzer.
Here.
Mrs. Thomas.
Here.
Mrs. Lawson.
Here.
Mr. Allen.
Here.
All 9 members present.
Okay. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Approval of minutes for the July 10th special meeting and the July 24th regular meeting. There's a motion and a second.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any questions, discussions, or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Treasurer's report. July 2019 Treasurer's report and July 2019 investment report.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Any corrections or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Approval of bills totaling $3,271,969.80.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, concerns, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Communications.
Yes, I have several items for communications this evening, 2 of which are listed there, and I would like to add that we've had a great start to the school year. Today was a wonderful first day, very calm first day. All of our kindergartners came in well, and we're very settled and comfortable in the environment, so great day to be a Bulldog today, and we're really proud and thankful for everyone for having a great first day. Also, I would like to note the 2 items that are on the agenda, and then I have an item that came in late that I'd like to let everyone know about. The first one there is Act 7 of 2019. I just thought it would be important for the community to know that this act was signed into law by Governor Wolf over the summer, and it requires every student to be trained in CPR prior to graduation, and that requirement is for this year. So we're going to have to make sure that everyone, even if they're not going through our health courses, will need to get that CPR training before they graduate this year. So, Emiliana, that's something that's coming your way if you're not already CPR trained. Also, B, there is a note about the 2017-18 elementary building scores that I need to let the community, as well as the board, and the board is aware of it. We've been looking at it. They know the administration has been looking into this issue. So on behalf of the board and the administration, would like to thank the Avis Elementary teachers specifically for digging deep into their 17-18 student PSSA data to find out why their overall building score was reported lower than the previous year's score. I know that it was a shock to the teachers specifically at Avis Elementary, and they really dug in deep to their data. As they reviewed the information, they noted several students were attributed to the building score, or their building score, which should not have been. This information was shared with the Central Office Administration, which led to an investigation of the information as well as a confirmation that an administrative error had been made in the assignment of student PSSA scores. This error of approximately 30 students has led to inaccurate building scores for the 17-18 school year for all 3 of our elementary buildings, not just Davis Elementary. A request was made to the Pennsylvania Department of Education to rerun the elementary building scores for the district. However, that request was denied. A new protocol has been established to ensure the accuracy of the district building score moving forward. We did utilize that new protocol, this for the 18-19 scores, building scores. And the 18-19 PA Future Ready Index information should be public very soon. So that will be coming out as well. We sincerely apologize for this error. And again, thank you to the Avis Elementary teachers for bringing this to our attention. It is truly appreciated. And it was a process of many months getting in contact with PD just to figure out what exactly occurred. So I wanted to make the community aware of that. 17-18 building scores are not accurate. They could have been higher, could have been lower. We don't know. PD was unwilling to run them, but we do know that because of a new protocol put in place, that the 18-19 building scores, which will be coming out shortly, are absolutely accurate. With that being said, the other thing that I would like to report this evening is I have been notified that there is an Our Town Jersey Shore project coming very soon, actually Wednesday, September the 11th. WPSU is seeking stories about Jersey Shore. The Our Town television series highlights stories from our friends and neighbors, and they are inviting us to be a part of the community project. They need stories about the people, places, and happenings in our area, and they're asking for our help. They say no experience required, just enthusiasm, and I know many of you have shared stories of Jersey Shore with the board in my tenure here, so I am letting you know about this meeting. It's a community meeting on Wednesday, September 11th at 6:30 p.m. at the Jersey Shore Municipal Building. So they are looking for individuals who are willing to share your stories about Jersey Shore. So thought that would be a good thing to let the community know about. And that ends my communications, other than we have Emiliana here this evening, and I believe she'll be doing a student report shortly.
Okay. President's report, I just, an interesting item that I read. My background is in MRI, nuclear medicine, and X-ray, and we keep hearing stories about the prevalence of vaping by our children in the community. And one of the first studies has come out now from the University of Pennsylvania that documented they exposed, I think it was 31 average age 24-year-old to vaping without any nicotine or THC or anything else within the vape itself. And they identified restriction of the vessels in the legs. So that's the first thing that they've actually identified a health effect from people who had never vaped before in their life. So just, you know, as you have the opportunity to influence the children in the community, please, you know, speak up and tell them that it's not as harmless as I think everyone was led to believe originally. Again, the study was out of the University of Pennsylvania Radiology Department. So if you want to research it yourself, you're welcome to do so. Thank you.
Adding to that, Craig, one person has recently died.
Yes, I know they had one that they expected the death was due to vaping. And this is, you know, basically for those people in the study, it was the first time they had ever vaped in their life, and they saw those effects immediately. Okay, intermediate unit report.
The first thing I want to say is that I apologize that I've not been real efficient with giving reports. I've been dealing with a lot of caregiver issues and also some health issues. I was able to get back to the IU meeting on Wednesday, and at your seat I gave you two information pieces. The first is the glossy piece that says Fast Facts. It's the 2019-20, just a fast glimpse. A lot of people ask what the IU is about, what's involved with the IU, and I think this is a really good first glance. I'm guessing, I haven't checked, but I'm guessing it's also on their website for anybody in the public who'd like to just kind of get an understanding of what their actual services are, and what they provide to our community. The second is a sheet that explains a partnering that they did over the summer from Variety Children's Charity and the IU. And what they did was they were able to come up with enough funding to provide adaptive bikes to children who have disabilities that struggle but can be mobile. And I'm excited to say that one of our Jersey Shore students is a recipient of one of the bikes. But what I'm really excited about is they really want to see any child that would like an adaptive bike to be given one. And so they handed us out program applications. I'm going to give these to our Director of People Services. And there are some qualifications you have to have, but they're pretty attainable. I mean, it's a pretty wide scope of disability that a child would have that they could possibly get a bike. But the goal is to give every child that fills an application out and qualifies gets a bike. So I just wanted to let that be known to our public. The applications will be here at the admin building in People Services, and Mrs. Levy would be the point of contact for that. So just wanted to let everybody know that. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Student representative report, Eliana.
Good evening. So school is officially back in session for the 2019-2020 school year, and whether this year marks the beginning for an anxious young freshman or a confident last first day senior, heading back to school signals a time of transition for students. There's new classes, new teachers, new schedules, and an overall new social scene. Even over summer, students are still proactive, so I just want to touch on 4 exciting things that Jersey Shore High School students were up to this summer. So early in the summer, leaving at midnight on June 15th and coming back 7 days later on the 22nd, students who met the trip requirements boarded their flight to Costa Rica with the purpose to explore a new country and immerse themselves further into the Spanish language. Senior Maya Moore said that the trip showed her how much more there is to the world than just the areas we live in now. Students on the trip overall said their favorite parts were learning how to snorkel, going through tours, ziplining, and becoming closer to classmates. Maya said it was very hard to say goodbye to the beautiful country at the end of the week. 11:30 on Wednesday, July 26th, national qualifiers for FBLA boarded their flight to Texas. After enjoying new sights, eating lots of food, and competing in the national competition, students returned back July 3rd. Senior Natalie Chernagle told me that it was an amazing experience worth all of her time and effort. Her favorite parts of the trip were being around people from all over the country, seeing how FBLA programs compare nationwide, and experiencing a new state culture, getting to better know the other students from her school who also went with her. Graduate now, Hunter Smith said that his business skills that he has gained from FBLA has made him a lot more comfortable in social situations, and he recommends FBLA to new upcoming students, saying the national trip was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and well worth all the work that he put in. And just recently, from August 5th to August 9th, Marching Band had a summer camp to prepare for their upcoming season, providing them with basic marching band technique and discipline. Junior Tate Noggle reflected on his skills he has acquired from his band camp, saying it created a technique that allowed for multitasking while playing an instrument and moving in a synchronized way. The first home game is this Friday the 30th at 7 p.m., where the marching band will show off all their hard work and perform during halftime. And then finally, this past summer, the 100th anniversary of Jersey Shore High School yearbooks were released. 50 students rated this yearbook overall as an average 9 on a scale of 1 to 10 and agreed that the layout and style of the book was the best feature. Showing pictures from the past generations with their yearbooks was unique, as it properly celebrated 100 successful years of Jersey Shore High School yearbook history. I now want to conclude my presentation by saying congratulations to last year's yearbook staff and yearbook alumni on such a well-liked memory book and an honorable century. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Emiliana.
Superintendent's report.
Yes, we have 3 items on the report this evening. The first one is Jamie Doyle is here from PFM to talk to us about bond refinancing. We're hoping to make some money.
Good Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. It's been a while. I haven't been here since calendar year 2017. I think each of you have a copy of my handout in front of you. And I'm happy to report that interest rates have reached new all-time lows. The old all-time lows were set in the summer of 2016, and we just went slightly lower than that in the last couple of weeks. So on page 1, this is a snapshot, 3 different snapshots of the same index. The top snapshot is designed to show you we're currently at the blue line, meaning the yield curve is very, very flat. Short-term rates are higher as the Fed had increased short-term rates for a period of time. Now they did decrease short-term rates at their last meeting in July, and there's an 88% prediction that they'll further decrease short-term rates at their September meeting. That's already priced into the market, so what I'm about to show you already contemplates that. In fact, the market has priced in yet a third decrease by the Federal Reserve Committee. The middle chart just shows the same index going all the way back to 1988. I drew a box on the right-hand side of that in red to show you that interest rates have done nothing but go down since November of 2018. So that's good for this refinancing opportunity. And that bottom box is just a blow up of the red box up above, so you can see that in greater detail. If you look at page 2, you'll see the district's existing debt portfolio. I've highlighted in yellow the general obligation bond series of 2013, which is the issue we're discussing refinancing this evening. As always, the top half of the page is gross debt service, meaning principal and interest on your various issues. And the bottom half of the page is your local share after state reimbursement is netted out to varying degrees on most of your issues. You'll notice toward the bottom of the highlighted yellow column, these 2013 bonds have been callable since March 1 of 2018, but they haven't worked until now. They haven't become remotely interesting until just recently. To go through the mechanics of the proposed refinancing, if you look at page 3, you'll see your 2013 bonds. So if you do nothing, you'll continue to make the payments on page 3. You'll see there's $4,425,000 of principal outstanding, and you're slated to make your final payment on March 1 of 2030. And in column 3, you can see the rates you currently have locked in range from a 2% in the first year to a 3% in the last year. So those are pretty low rates to begin with. So, this is a great opportunity, albeit it is a little bit like squeezing water from a stone or blood from a stone. You have pretty low rates to begin with. If you look at page 4, that just shows how much money we would need to pay off those old 2013 bonds if we were to do that in mid-November, principal and interest. And page 5 is the important page. We've simply replaced those old higher rates that we just looked at with today's rates in column 3, which range from a 2.14% to a 2.43%. And I'm being a little conservative, as always. If we were having a sale today, you'd do a little bit better than this. But those lower rates are what generate the net savings that you see estimated in column 10, which total just over $101,000. If you start at the top of column 10 and work your way downward, based on the structure of the bonds we're refunding, the way you would recognize these savings is by reduced payments, beginning in the current fiscal year of about $26,000, rounding up slightly, about $16,000 in year 2, in year 3, in year 4, in year 5, and then a couple thousand each year thereafter. You will notice, and we've done this in the past at the school district, instead of you making your final payment in March of the fiscal year ending 2030, as you were originally slated to do, we've moved the principal payment dates up 6 months within the same fiscal year. So now you would make your final payment on September 1 of 2029, which helps that savings number a little bit. Right underneath that savings box, there's a line that says present value of 0.1%. I just want you to understand how sensitive this opportunity is. So for every 0.1% that rates move up or down, it affects your net savings number by almost $37,000. So very, very sensitive. Again, it did not work at all until just recently, but it's starting to look pretty promising. That estimated number is net, I keep saying the word net, so as a reminder, that means that the state share is already netted out. You can see the state share in that bottom box. Unfortunately, they get the same share of your savings as they pay on the debt service for this bond issue, as well as estimated cost of issuance are netted out. And as always, we would bid out as many of those cost of issuance as possible through the internet auction process to choose the underwriter. We'll also bid out bond insurance and paying agent and as many items as we possibly can in order to maximize the savings to the district. If you look at page 6, you'll see the sample motion for your consideration if and when you'd like to authorize the financing team to go ahead and get the paperwork in order. The financing team, as always, consists of myself as your independent financial advisor, Eckert Siemens as your bond counsel, and your local solicitor. And we are suggesting that you set a minimum acceptable net savings target of $50,000, meaning if rates went up and the savings dropped below $50,000 net to the school district, we wouldn't do it. You're not setting a maximum. It's my job to save you every dollar that I possibly can, but we do need a minimum threshold so that we know, what number is meaningful to you in a fairly volatile market when rates are moving around. The sample timeline at the bottom of page 6, tonight is an initial presentation. If you were inclined to authorize the finance team with the above motion this evening, we would be back at your September 23rd meeting with a parameters resolution that would put all of the legal approvals into place under the Local Government Unit Debt Act, and then we would be prepared around October 8th to actually lock in rates and lock in your savings. It takes about 3 weeks to get a credit rating, so that's a big chunk of the time in the timeline. And then you would settle in mid-November, as I had mentioned earlier. So this refinancing is very similar to other refundings that you've done in the past. It is very sensitive, but I think the timing is great. This will be after the next Federal Reserve Committee meeting, but hopefully before anything could change that might make rates go up. Because again, the market's already priced in a third decrease in Fed funds rates. So I'll pause there. I know that was a lot of information, and answer any questions that you have at this time.
How many bonds you talking about here?
We would just be refinancing your 2013 bonds, about $4.5 million.
What's the interest rate? What's the interest rate now? What's the interest rate you anticipate?
The interest rate on the old bonds ranges from a 2% to a 3%. Each
Right.
maturity has a different rate. And the new interest rates would range from a 2.14% to a 2.43%. So all your bonds in this issue, if you're looking at page 5, this was a wraparound structure. So really all the bonds are out in 2028 and 2029. Those are the big chunks, so those are where the interest rates really matter in those last 2 years. And, that's a pretty substantial reduction of 3% down to 2.43.
So you think we're gonna get a lower interest rate?
I'm hopeful.
It's down pretty low right now.
I'm hopeful, but you nailed it. You have pretty low rates to begin with, and this is, we're trying to wring those last savings out for you.
So these numbers already include a possible decrease, another decrease, or?
Yes, that's already
So that
factored in.
might not happen, or it could happen, or it's pretty certain. I mean, what are we saying here?
Well, there's an 88% prediction that it will happen at the September meeting, which will be the second decrease. And then, the next meeting after that is another 6 weeks. So if I could predict that, I would be.
So you're saying here, you lock in, say I'll lock in the rate, so if it goes down after that, we've already locked it in, so that won't affect us?
Correct.
So
Correct.
I guess that's the main question, you waited an extra month for the rate. I don't know the answer to that.
Well, 3 are already priced in, so, we're trying, and you're past your call date. So that's another factor. Once you get past the call date, every day that goes by that you're paying the old higher rate means what you have left to refund is shorter. So there's less, to reduce interest on every day thereafter, if you think about it in terms of weighted average life.
Did you say our debt is down to 27 million?
I'm sorry?
Did you mention 27 million being our, what our
You must
debt
know our
is?
complete debt.
Oh, your complete debt, if you look back at page 2, your current principal outstanding is that orangish line toward the bottom that says principal, and in total, that's $29,584,000.
So that 29 million, that's all in bonds?
It's all in bonds, except for, if you look at the top of the page in column 6, you have some notes in 2015 AA, 2015 AAA, 2015 Quad A, and 2017. Those were bank loans that made sense at the time. So you have some notes and you have some bonds. These are bonds that we're talking about this evening.
And I understand we're paying 3.2 million a year on our debt. Does that have any effect on this?
Well, it will reduce it by those estimated
Right.
amounts in those years that you see in page 5. That's how you'll recognize your savings, through reduced payments in those years.
But you're just looking at 4 million out of that
Yes,
27 million?
yes.
All right, thank you.
If I'm looking at page 2, so those notes are, in other words, those notes in 2015, what you're showing there is they're gonna be paid off in 1 or 2, 3 years?
Yes,
That's what that's showing, every debt that's incurred by the school
Correct.
district across there.
now you have wraparound debt, so the column that you should also be focusing on, that's absolutely true, but look at column 20. So some of your other debt wraps around that. So by state law, you're required to have overall level or declining debt service, and column 20 is the end net effect on your budget, taking into account all your issues and taking into account state reimbursement. So you're pretty much level, I'll call that 2.5 million, 2.6 million, through and including fiscal year ending 2029, before you really have a drop off.
Right. But that column 20, more or less, is the payment for all of the notes and the bonds
Correct,
across the district.
correct,
Okay. And they're semi-annual.
correct.
You did this one time before. How much money did you make us? Can you remember? Was it-
Well,
was it
I've done a
last
lot of
year?
refundings for you over the years.
Was it
and
last year? Did
it
you do
has-
this last year?
2017 was the last time we did this.
2017,
And I do think it was a larger number than what we're talking about this evening, but I also think we were starting, from a higher interest rate at that point in time.
Okay.
I mean, you have very low interest rates on all of your debt in your debt portfolio to begin with, because you've done such a good job of managing your portfolio. But, certainly 50,000, 100,000 is still a very viable opportunity.
Well, we have to pay you too.
That is true.
Okay.
He brought that up, I was thinking that also. What is the offset in that, your payment in relation to what we're saving? We're saving 50, no, you don't really know what we're gonna save until it comes out to bid and we actually see what the rates are. So you're hoping somewhere
You won't know exactly what you're
between,
gonna save. I always have a pretty good idea of the market and what I think the savings are going to be at the end of the day, so I won't enter the market unless I think I can, meet your minimum acceptable savings target. But for now, I'm assuming budgeted cost of issuance, based on what you've paid historically. I won't know those until the day of the sale either, because again, we bid out as many of those as possible. All the big ones, the big ones are the underwriter, which we determine through the internet auction process, and the bond insurance. Those are the two biggest fees in the transaction.
But that's above the 50,000.
pardon me?
Those fees are above the 50,000.
Right, they're already netted
This is a
out.
net savings to us. Even though the savings might be greater, you have just those two fees that she said, but still for us would be at least 50,000.
So the net savings are somewhere between 50 and 100,000, is what you're projecting.
That's my goal, yes.
Okay, I'm glad you explained that.
What's significant about this time frame that we're operating in between now and then? Why did you choose this particular time?
It only just started making economic sense. I mean, you didn't have any positive savings until recently. So once you start to get into positive savings territory, that's when I reach out to your administration and say, hey, this is starting to look interesting. And then we put together a timeline. And really the significance is just knowing what we know happened at the Federal Reserve Committee already, seeing the flight to quality that's occurring as we speak, everything that you hear in the news, trade wars and anything that sounds unsettling, that causes investors to pull their money out of stocks and equities and want to park it somewhere nice and safe. Doesn't get much nicer and safer than a Pennsylvania school district bond that has 3 layers of protection backing it. They know they're going to get their money back. You have taxing power. You pay for a bond insurance policy, and we have the Pennsylvania State Intercept program. So they want to park their money nice and safe, and that's really what's driving interest rates so low. So again, back to your timing question, knowing what we know now and that the market has priced in and is assuming there's going to be a second and a third decrease by the Federal Reserve Committee, that's how the timing came together. And taking into account that you're past your call date as we discussed earlier. So every day that goes by at the old higher rate, there's less to squeeze savings out of.
What's kind of crazy, the Dow Jones is going down 600 points and then back up 600 points. Will that affect it?
It's a very volatile market right now. That's why it's so important to have this discussion, set a minimum savings target that's acceptable, and get the paperwork in order. And you'll notice all my dates say or later after them. If that's not the right day, I'm not going to do it that day. I mean, I will have a feel for how things are as we get closer to that date, and if we have to postpone it, we have to postpone it, if I don't feel like the time's right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on my report is Justin Armbruster, who's going to present information for a proposed Kelly Klein Memorial. And I believe he has a contribution number to share as well.
I do. Good evening, Board. I am honored and humbled to be here on behalf of a dear friend and former colleague, Mrs. Kelly Klein. As you know, she passed during the last school year, and as a result, we've received a very generous contribution on behalf of her friends from State Farms, both Northeast and Central Region. And so I'm coming to you tonight to offer that donation for approval, and then talk a little bit about the vision that we have for this. So the proposal would be to refurbish the courtyard in front of the middle school. And I took a picture of the courtyard as it stands the other day. I apologize, there are 2 slides, Mr. Allen, so you can look back at them, but you're familiar with the building.
Get a mirror.
Yeah. So the idea is that we can refurbish the courtyard from its current state to something that would be more usable. As the friends from State Farm offered this money, which is in the amount of $5,225, their contribution goal was to memorialize her contributions to the school and the community. And so we've developed a small committee of teachers and close friends to discuss. You're testing me here.
I thought I had it all. It's the old time Western, spaghetti Western.
I'm not able to check there.
He's coming.
So anyway, the goal really is to memorialize her contributions to the school and the community. And so when we got the committee together with some of her closest friends and colleagues, we really talked about coming up with something that all students would benefit from, because that was really important to Kelly while she was teaching in our school. You know, she wasn't just a librarian or just a reading teacher. She really was an advocate for all the kids. She really wanted to meet with them. And then through the friendships that we've had, Kelly was a very, very social person, and she was quick to get engaged in your life and want to know what's going on, and always willing to look for a good opportunity to do that. So as we talked over possibilities, the courtyard seemed to be the best fit and something that would serve as many students as possible. So when we look at what we can do with that, we have the morning time where students wait outside. We mentioned, Dr. Wendrick mentioned we had a great first day today. There were kids outside the middle school at 7 o'clock. Even though we stressed we do not open the doors till 7:45. And the sidewalks look great, they're well decorated. So it was a great first day, but we really would like to have something of a courtyard there where students, if they do get there early, they have a place to sit, they have a place to socialize, which would be great. Lunchtime is a time that's pretty crowded in our cafeterias. It would be really nice if we had that space so that students could get outside and eat for lunch. We've implemented a Come Alive period this year at the middle school, which is a time where students can engage in some of that social emotional learning that you hear a lot about. We're really focused on some of the digital citizenship stuff. So this space as a learning space, it would be great to get outside and have some of those conversations as well. And then of course there's the potential for just general classwork out there, as well as any after school event, being able to use that courtyard as an opportunity for something like that. So if you could advance to the next slide. Part of the conversation was really figuring out how can we get a project in place where some of her former students could participate in it. So, we do have an amount that we were provided, and I think these are some of the things that we've talked about that we could do out there. The first of which would be to work with Mr. Wall and his crew on developing a little bit more of a concrete patio area. They added stone this year, which is really, really nice, so maybe even expanding that. But we'd like to add some of the benches and the picnic tables, which Mr. Jarrett's class would be more than willing to do as part of their curriculum. He shared that. A lot of those students are former students of Mrs. Klein, so I think it would be great if they could contribute to that. And then they also have the ability to do some of the engravings, as you can see with the photo on the left. That's some of the stuff that they can do and some of the woodwork, so they'd really like to incorporate that on the benches and the picnic tables as well. We talked about, one of the purchases we might need to make would be providing some type of shade or cover. So looking at something that would not occupy our maintenance staff a whole bunch, but also look very nice. In a courtyard setting would be sun veils, and they're less than $20 to purchase that for shading opportunities. And then they also talked about the ability to incorporate some of the small outdoor games like cornhole and the tiki toss, which is the ring, that's the little hook that you, it's hard to do, but if you've been out to a courtyard setting, they have those and they're very easy to make. So that's the proposal. The group would propose that the area be named Kelly's Court, and like I said, it's just a great opportunity for students and staff to gather and celebrate, one another, and we're hoping that is something we can do to honor a great friend as well. So, if you have any questions?
I just have one that's strange. Ray Thompson, he was the principal at Loyalsock High School and a good friend of mine, so I'm just curious that that came up there. But supervision or something like that, would you have it during the school day, or if you did, would the classes be allowed outside, or how would you supervise that?
Yeah, so we would use it similarly to how we use some of our other learning spaces right now, where you would have to sign up for access during the school day. And so if they're doing that, the teachers sign up and then the teacher supervises it directly. If it was something where we were outside for lunch, then we would have a monitor or another staff member there as well. So at any time during the school days while the school's in session, that's when that would happen. Which is really, it's no different than what we do now. There are times where the students go out and they utilize that space. We have cookouts and stuff. So it would just, they'd have some seating. They wouldn't just be sitting in the
So
grass.
it's going on now with supervision?
It is, yes.
All right.
Any other questions for Mr. Armbruster? We do not have this on for approval this evening. We'll have it on the next agenda for approval. Okay, thank you, Mr. Armbruster. And the final presentation is border testing results. Mr. Wall.
I'd like to report back the results of the remediations that have been made throughout the district from the lead testing that we talked about back in January. Throughout the month of 2019, total sources that water was sampled from was 598 total sites throughout the district. Out of those 598 sites, 107 sample results tested to exceed the EPA drinking water standard of 0.015 parts per million. At that time, all sites were immediately shut off until a plumbing profile was created for these specific sites and further action was taken. Actions taken were to go over each building floor plan to determine the locations of fixtures and piping to determine if sites were clustered or sporadically out throughout the building, to help identify the source if it was being created by the supply piping or the actual fixture. In early July, it was determined that 7 of the sites would be flushed and retested. They came back all passing. 13 of the sites would be 100% removed from service. 37 sites are posted with a do not drink placard. Similar to that.
And that particular placard was provided by PDE or a sample came from PDE, or how
This
did
was
you determine that's the one to use?
From the EPA.
EPA, thank you.
And 50 sites had all existing fixtures, soldered connections, removed and replaced and retested, and passing and placed back in service on 8/20/2019. Moving forward, we'll be retesting where some of the sources have been removed and annually testing 200 sites every year.
And I believe this has all been reported to PDE, correct?
Yeah, I reported, we go over each school where the water status is now. The high school is at 0.0093, middle school is at 0.0034, Jersey Shore Elementary is at 0.0020, Avis Elementary is at 0.0044, Saladiesburg is at 0.0012, and the district office is at 0.00015.
Who ordered this test? Why did we do this?
This started in 2018 through PDE. It's a mandated, there's a couple different options that I explained in January, what we could do. We could do the testing, not do the testing, just do a presentation on lead in water in facilities in K through 12 schools. At that time, I believe we decided to go ahead and test every outlet we would have that somebody could possibly get a drink of cold water from.
That was an agenda item, Ron. We approved that as a board.
And I remember. So this order went out to all the school districts in the state.
Yes.
Have you had any feedback from any of your associate school districts regarding?
Not a lot. I know on PDE's website, there's quite a few schools that are, because when you submit that information, it gets put right on their water drinking page of their lead levels in their buildings. But locally here, no, I have not had any feedback from any others.
Yeah, I've got a question. Of the 37 sites you hung the placards, are many of them or any of them actually like water fountains for the kids?
Not one of them are. No.
So it's not
There's one that in our science labs, there's like big clusters of lab tables that to replace the faucets on the lab table, you'd have to replace the whole lab table. But no, none of them are drinking fountains. We had 7 drinking fountains total, and I believe 4 of those were 100% removed because they're just in areas where they're not used anymore. They were water fountains from probably early 80s. But nothing that drinking fountain wise, no.
And any in the cafeterias?
In the kitchens, you mean?
Yeah, kitchens, I mean.
I believe there might have been one hand wash sink at middle school. I don't believe there was any other ones, but I'd have to check my list of all 600 to verify that.
Those weren't the do not drink, those weren't the ones you posted, correct?
Yeah. I didn't post anything that was gonna be directly drank from, was meant to drink from.
And the testing that we did is a third of the units that we have in the district, correct? Are we doing 1/3 each year
We're
for
going-
3 years?
1/3 going forward, yeah.
Right.
Is the placard from the EPA a accepted permanent fix for those?
It's not a permanent
Or do we
fix.
have to do the permanent fix within a certain period of time?
To tell you, I mean, it wasn't real clear from PD how long that it could stay there, but I wouldn't anticipate it. I wouldn't want it to be there very long. I know where those pods are in the science lab, they're only capital projects for construction to renovate all of that, so hopefully it'll be taken care of at that time.
Any other questions for Mr. Wall?
Is this a one-time test, or are we talking about just a one-time test here?
One-time test for everything. Moving forward, we'll do approximately 200 a year.
200 a year?
Yeah, it's in the budget next year, this year's budget. To do
For
it.
how many years?
There's no end in
It's
sight.
Several years.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be an every year thing.
And it would take 3 years to cycle, if I remember correctly. And we'll continue that cycle.
Yeah, they told us, we had a couple of different webinars on this, and basically, the first time around, the only way to rule out your entire facility building envelope is to do everything. And that's what,
Well, it certainly makes sense, and you did a great job, and I appreciate all the remediation work that was done after the initial testing to make sure that, all of our water is safe, and if it's not, we have it posted.
thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, the board's gonna go to executive session now. Hopefully it'll be pretty brief for legal and personnel. Okay, we'll come back in session. Looking for a motion to add addenda item 1 under miscellaneous to retire the football jersey number 20 at the 8:30 home game against Sealands Grove on Friday evening.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of adding the addendum, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. So that will be item L. Or 1. Item E under miscellaneous for this evening. Okay, we'll move on to public comment, and again, this is a reminder, when you come up for the public comment in the first session, It must be on an agenda item that's listed on the agenda for this evening. So if you would identify that agenda item when you come to the podium, I'd appreciate it. First signee was Mr. Francis.
Before Mr. Frago, Mr. Allen, based on, I doubt my meets criteria for agenda, I have 4 items, I don't think I can do it this time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Young?
Yeah, this is my first board meeting in a long time. I'm an educator in a district.
Sir, just up to the podium. Otherwise, we don't catch you on tape.
You can hear me, I know that. As a former educator, I'm concerned about some things going on in the district. I've been on both sides of the fence, teacher, administration, working with boards. I'm basically concerned with the decisions involving the elementary schools. I hear a lot of things, a lot of comments. I'd like to know some facts. I'm the type of person that, I don't want you just to tell me something. I want you to show me the facts. And I'd like to have those facts given to me if that's at all possible at some time. Whether I have to go to the superintendent's office sometime and sit down in a peaceful manner. I know how important it is to have decent class size. Class size, qualified, certified teachers, parents create a good education. I question whether it's going to be wise to close those 2 elementary schools, not knowing the facts, of course, but wanting to know the facts. I've taught classes from 10 problematic students to as high as 27, 28, and I think I had one class of 30. I had about 750 kids in school when I was the building principal at the junior high school. And I've got 31 years in this district. And I hear this bickering and so forth, and it's been going on for years and years, and I think it's about time maybe some decisions made, one way or the other. I don't condone closing elementary schools based on finance. I think that schools legally can be closed for enrollment purposes. If I'm wrong, please correct me. I look at what happened at Salatisburg Elementary School. A school that had nice-sized classrooms, good teachers, and the highest math scores and science scores, I understand, of all the elementary schools. We closed those down. And I question why. Maybe I can get some answers there. I understand there's a movement to change the structure of the educational program, like K through 3, 4 through 7, 8 through 12. And I'm wondering about the class sizes there. As an educator, I don't think there should be any class over 20 students in class, preferably 15 to 20 in the elementary grades. I've taken a lot of pride and I've seen a lot of good things that our kids have done in this district, and I'm very proud. The fact that I was part of that. Mary Thomas is another person. I knew Harry back when he was in school. I could tell you a lot of stories about him, probably.
Not now.
Not you? No.
Not now.
Not now.
Much later.
But I respect you and your endeavors. It's extremely difficult to balance finance, enrollment, and other aspects of education. I just hope that God gives you the wisdom and knowledge to make the right decision. And if I can do anything to be part of that and help you, I'm here. Why I want to get involved at my age, I question that right now myself. But,
We all question why we're involved too, so.
and I understand.
It's the money we're after. Yeah, your 3 minutes is up, sir. You're limited to 3 minutes.
Can I just say one thing? please?
Sure, just close up.
In restructuring that K through 12, what effect is that going to have on what is it, CTE, a technical program? Is that going to eventually involve more classroom construction, which involves more finances, and possibly more taxes to the citizens, and particularly the senior citizens who struggle today. I thank you for allowing me to speak here. It certainly is a new experience being here, but I might show up again. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Mr. Rogers.
My comments probably are more applicable to the old business.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kinley?
Wayne Kinley, Mifflin Township. My question involves the,
Your agenda item, sir?
I'm sorry,
The agenda.
the investment report.
Okay, thank you.
I looked at the most recent 12 months, and I noticed that for June and July, there's no, none of the working capital funds are invested in CDs as they are the other 10 months. And I'm just questioning why that is. Why don't we have our working capital invested, especially when June and July are two of the highest months' work. We have high cash balances. And I'm asking if, I know that you don't answer tonight, but whether...
I think we can answer that one, because I think Mr. Andrews has answered it before.
Okay.
Typically, the district does not invest money at the end of the school year. It's to protect the district from a potential budget issue in Harrisburg. My understanding is several years ago when there was a budget impasse in Harrisburg, the district is able to keep afloat and stay running on two things. One, the real estate tax revenue that comes in July and August, and then also on its cash reserves that allowed it not to have to borrow any money. And I believe that year the budget wasn't passed by the governor until late November or early part of December. At which time then the Harrisburg quickly pushed out a bunch of money through PDE and the basic ed subsidy to the districts, but there were a lot of districts that had to borrow short-term capital to stay afloat and to just basically make payroll. So that's the reason why at the end of the year we typically don't do investments, is to keep the money liquid. After July 1st hit, I sat down with my staff, we reviewed some interest rates, we looked at interest rates on August the 15th. We did invest some money, it's not into a CD, but there's a savings account with Pliget called iClass. But it will not show up on the treasury report as an investment just because of the nature of the funds. There still is a cash value, it just has limitations on the number of transfers and withdrawals it could have, but it was the best interest rate that we could obtain at that time. We will continue to look at CDs to make sure we can invest our money, but we will also try to get the best interest rate we can. And as of right now, that's sitting in our savings account.
What is it? May I ask what Piglet, whatever it's called, what does that stand for?
Pliget stands for the Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust. So it's all municipal entities. I've done several audits, and municipalities invest in Pliget and school districts.
So it's pool money, basically?
Yes.
Yeah. And just roughly, what is the rate on that?
2.18.
Okay.
And currently our checking account's 1.96.
Yeah.
And our rates that we were quoted, most of them were just around 2 or lower on CDs.
Okay. And I don't know whether you've ever considered laddering, which you probably know what that means, where you have CDs come due at different times, and you could have a CD mature every month and have that cash available. So, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kinley. signed in, so we'll move on to personnel. We have items A through T under personnel. Any motion to approve personnel?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I'll second.
Any questions, concerns, comments, corrections?
I'm just gonna voice my concern about the increase in class sizes with the resignation of that 5th grade teacher. Now that our class sizes are gonna go up 25% in that grade level, I just wanna make a note, I object to that. I don't think that's a great idea.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Crable. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We have nothing under curriculum instruction, nothing under building and grounds, finance. We have A through E, which includes the authorization for PFM to pursue the refunding of the bonds. And it has the conditions that were described to us earlier.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Schweitzer.
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Crable. Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Question.
Aye. You have a question?
I did.
Jump on it. Okay, we'll rescind the vote pending Mr. Brungar's comments.
No, the school, the scoreboard sponsorship, is that totally being paid for by the bank, I believe, or?
Take care of that, Mr. Brungar.
Yes, the scoreboard, the purchase of the new scoreboard would be fully funded by the sponsorship agreement that's letter B. So it's 100% paid for with the sponsorship.
I just want to clarify that, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Miscellaneous, we have A through E now with the addendum. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Okay, under, old business, as we alluded to in our last meeting, we're gonna discuss the, various, pros and cons of the school closure plans, either to close one school, close both schools, close no schools. And I would like to add that the team that evaluated the optional plans that we reviewed at the last meeting got together and reviewed the plan that was submitted by a member of the public, and the group unanimously declined to bring the plan to the full board based on the perception that it was not an improvement on the existing optional plans. So, open the floor regarding school closure.
Well, I'd like to ask for consideration that we structure policy that is going to put some cap limits on our class sizes, whatever decision we make with our school decision. We haven't even talked really about what our limit would be if we would go ahead and move forward with one of these plans as to where our class size is, where we would put a limit on the number of kids per class. So is it possible we could start to talk about a policy ahead of this to define what we would find acceptable limits to our class sizes, especially in the elementary levels, because that seems to be where there will be a big change there in the average class size across the board. Is anybody else interested in that, or?
I thought we had administrative regs on.
We have administrative
Not policy.
regulations
Yeah,
on.
but we don't have policy. I'm
sizes,
talking about
correct.
policy.
An admin reg is different than a policy. If you have a policy, it has to be followed to the letter.
Right.
If you have one student coming in extra, then you gotta hire an extra teacher
Correct.
for one student.
Well, no, that's not
No,
correct.
you could waive the policy with a supermajority in a situation like that. But generally across the boards, I think we should define what we're gonna tolerate in Jersey Shore as acceptable limits in the class before we move into this. So I'm just putting it out there if anybody else is interested. This is what I'd like to see.
You can also utilize a range within classes, size, within your policy. You have flexibility that way.
Well, I don't know if you need a range. A minimum doesn't give you anything.
So you just think max, okay.
Well, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, it depends on how you, Chris asked for a limit. There's a limit to maximum, to me, not a minimum, but that's, it's certainly worth a discussion. So maybe we need to look at the regs, whatever they are, the administrative regs, and say, are we still here? Because those administrative regs are not something we easily have access to.
This is one of my pet peeves. If we do not have a policy on class size guidelines, I've gone to the internet and done some inquiry on that, and I found out that nationally, the class size guidelines for the elementary is 20 students. And then I looked at the secondary, and the secondary is also 20 students. That's a national average. I got a printout of every state and what the averages were. And that also includes in Pennsylvania. So that's certainly something to take into consideration. I also think that it's a fundamental thing, if you will. You need to determine what your class size guidelines are in order to plan accordingly. Determine how many classrooms you need, how many teachers you need, and so forth and so on. So I don't know why that is not a policy. But I certainly support developing policy on class size guidelines.
I think we've been talking about school closures for going on 2 years now, at least in this evolution. So I think all of a sudden now, we're worried about what our maximum class sizes are going to be and developing a policy and all those things is kind of leading the game.
Why is it leading the game if
I'm not
it's?
opposed to having a policy, but I just don't see why now, at the end of almost 2 years of discussion, we're bringing up, now we have to have.
Because once again, it's-
Now we have to define policy.
I just want to address that. This hasn't just been brought up. I've been bringing up class size for the last 2 years. This has been a topic of conversation right through. I'm just asking now that we're to fruition, or it looks like we're going to be voting on one of these, that this be put in place, and it can be done really in a matter of 2 or 3 meetings to get that formed and put into place. So I don't see why it would be a drag to this. We have plenty of time for any vote on this. So I'm just requesting it. Well, there may not be the support to have this though, so I do want to just say though, I did constantly raise the issue of class size right along.
No, I agree, Chris. You've raised it many times about your concern with class size. And the class size is irrelevant whether we have all the existing schools we currently have, or we consolidate, or we do nothing. It's something that's always been a topic. You brought it up, and we've had them in regs. So I agree with Craig. To say we need a policy now is no different than what it would have been 2 years ago for that policy. And, you know, something that I don't understand how people don't see this, but when we talk about classroom size and balancing the classrooms, the options we discussed previously and the current situation we have now is not the best way to do that. The current situation we have now is the worst case scenario trying to balance these classrooms. If we have all the grades within one building, that is the optimum way to balance the classroom size of the elementary school. Because you can have plus or minus basically one student because we're all in the same building.
You're just gonna have more students in
Well,
each class.
yeah, I'm not
That's
asking
what we
about,
decided
It's not,
upon yet.
it wouldn't be distributed, it wouldn't be distributed at a lower number if you have them all in one classroom or all in one school.
We're not gonna have 13 in a classroom the way we have now.
well, we do at the high school though.
No,
We
but
do.
those are different classes. They're
They're totally different.
This is our foundational education though. This is where our
I
kids learn to read.
understand that, Chris.
Right, but this gives us the best equality for all the students across the district. So if you have two classrooms, for example, in Davis, I don't know what the numbers are now, and they were both small, you'd have, say, 16 students apiece because you had 132 in the classroom. And then all the ones at JSE, maybe at 24. That's not equal. The kids at Davis are benefiting because they're the outliers.
Are they, whoa. Is it ever gonna be equal? I mean, come on, attendance, enrollment in our school system is fluid every year.
Right,
Just
Kelly?
because you're saying, you're using that as an example, and that's fine. JSC has the same issue. They will have a classroom that will have more, will exceed student numbers from the outlying schools. So don't just pen it
No.
on those outlying schools having the lesser numbers.
Let me-
That's not
let me-
true.
let me
We're
follow up
not,
with that.
we're not on my point. My point is not balancing class size. It's limiting class size. And your discussion went from limiting to balancing, and it's two different things. All right? And so I just want to make sure we're not getting those mixed up, especially for the public, because
And to your point, Chris, you have been mentioning this a long time. On the other side of that, I've been asking people to bring to this board documentation that shows what the optimal class size is. I've researched it myself. There is no number out there.
So we can't set one for ourselves?
Well, we should have it based on information.
We should have
Not
it
just
based on
our
what
own.
we as a board decide should be the policy and the class size.
But it should be supported based
determine that.
on data.
Oh,
Data
okay.
should-
Well, data can show us either. So data can show us all kinds of numbers. I mean, we can sit down and I can show you data that I see. You can show me data that you see. That's not home to our school district.
Right.
Right.
I received
And
data, I received data today from one of the other board members. And one of the links that was provided made a statement that there should be no more than 200 students in any level. So elementary, high school, and middle school, we should have no more than 200 students in any of those levels. I mean, unless you go back to one-room schoolhouses, that's not gonna happen.
Okay, that's one piece of data.
So I'm saying, the data is all over the place.
Yeah.
But we've
it
got to
is.
decide, our decision should still be based on data that's developed over time and through, reasonable resources.
I'm just going on what I know previous administrations had preached to the board over and over again, and that is class size directly impacts the child's success because the amount of time you get with the teacher definitely benefits the student. And that's why I say there's a loss when we keep taking from our elementary levels. Every time we need to save money, that's where we go. That's what we're going there for our schools, we're going there for our teachers, our technology, everything comes out of that level. It's our foundational education, and I don't know how far we can go before we're gonna start to really regret it, but it'll be too late because those kids will be through the elementary level and we'll have them in high school. And I'm concerned about that. So I just wanna voice it. If there's no support or not enough, I understand it's democratic, but I just wanted to bring it up and mention it.
Good. I agree with you that the foundation, I've said that all along also, that's the base of the education. And by being more efficient with the use of our funds, we can put it into the teachers, not the buildings themselves, not the support staff that we can save money by closing the schools. If there is the need for the teachers, we have more resources available to put it into the teacher by being more efficient with the use of our funds.
The current administrative guidelines for elementary is as follows. kindergarten, 20 students, first grade, 21, second grade, 22, third grade, 23, fourth grade, 24, and fifth grade, 25. And we're trying to impose those class sizes within the elementary division on a daily basis. Isn't that right, Dr. Winrich?
I don't have the admin regs in front of me. I know that kindergarten sizes, we would like to have 20, yes. That is true. And yes, the maximum we would like at fifth grade and fourth grade is 25. Those other two grade levels are somewhere in between, 22, 23, something.
And our current regulation, the class size guidelines for the middle school and the high school, the class size will not exceed 30 students. That's the class size guidelines.
We try not to exceed 30, that is correct, in any class. That's correct. I will say, today Dr. Dady and I were through the middle school and we were looking at class sizes, and they're ranging anywhere from 24 to 26 students in a class.
Well, I do want to recognize, I know the administration does everything they can to
They do.
maintain, right, so I don't want to put that shade on it. They definitely do.
Yeah, we just took a very large kindergarten class and split it into two so that we would be below that 20 threshold, and that's 13 and 13. We do have classes of 16 and 16 in buildings. The majority of classes 3 through 5 are 24, 25.
I do believe there's one classroom up at Sal that's got 29, correct?
There's 28 in fourth grade. There's 28 in fourth grade. Last year, if you recall, we had a fifth grade class in Salisbury Elementary that was 30 and then went to 31, and we had a part-time aide come in to help.
But I also recall that that is a grade level that participates in our PSSA testing.
They
right?
do, sure.
And I also recall that we assigned at one point departmentalized areas of subject, and now because one of those classrooms has been eliminated, one of those grade levels or one of the classes has been eliminated, that particular teacher has to teach all three of those things, which perfectly competent to do. But my problem is this fluctuation that's occurring of class size, and that ballooned up number can wreak havoc on that particular process, I think.
And I think what you just described is what Dr. Pecchia was trying to explain, is the fact that no matter which one of these options you choose, you have 5 options in front of you. We talked about options 1 through 3 the last board meeting. No matter what you choose, these options are going to help you not have that fluctuation in class size, because if you have all 3 to 5 in JSC as option 2 states, and Avis and Sal are K to 2, those class sizes are going to be balanced, or more balanced. And I think that's what Dr. Pecchia was trying to say. Whether you close schools or whether you keep them open, that can be done. So it's the board's discussion this evening, I believe, is mainly on options 4 and 5, is my understanding.
Right, I'm just trying to make the point that there's just such fluidity. 1 year a class has 24, and then the next year it's inundated with 28. I'm just making that point, that there's just fluidity always. I mean, throughout the year there's fluidity. You'll add kids and you'll subtract kids. It's a fluid thing, so we have to accommodate for the fluidity, is my point.
That's my point as well, Kelly.
Right.
In one
I
location, you have
understand.
that flexibility.
I know, what my point is that it doesn't always have to be one, it doesn't have to just be that solution. All these presented, like Dr. Warner just said, address that consistency issue.
That's true, but we also have the underlying push for what we're looking at, is that we are fiscally challenged and we don't have resources to keep doing what we're doing. And we're going negative in the hole further and further every year. So we have to be fiscally responsible and do the same thing.
Well, when I looked over the sheet we got from Ben at the last meeting, between the budget with closing 2 schools and the budget without, there is after 2 to 3 years in that range, there's no difference except a $1 million separation between both the deficit and our fund balance. We will still have a budget deficit. It'll just be a year later. It'll be the same amount. It's just a 1 year earlier closure will be $1 million ahead, just 1 year. So I don't think this really addresses the deficit problem. It delays it for a year, but there's going to have to be more fundamental changes, and if we close those elementary schools, we will have nowhere to go. So I'm just pointing out that that's not going to change our deficit problem. It just delays it a year, according to what I saw.
It does delay it a year, but I think everybody, I mean, I get emails all the time that, you know, the legislature's proposing this, or Governor Wolf's proposing that. So it does buy us some time, hopefully, until something actually passes, rather than just be kind of thrown out in front of us as you know, a dog bone to tease us along.
Well, I understand it would serve that purpose, yeah.
I just have a follow-up of what you just said, Chris. If I'm reading the numbers incorrectly here, I'm looking at what Ben presented the last meeting. It says, I'm looking at the fund balance without tax increase. At the end of the 4th year, with school closures, the fund balance would be a positive 2.1. Without school closures, the fund balance would be a negative 1.2 million. So to me, that's a difference of like 3.3 million with school closures.
There's a lot of assumptions in that. There's a lot of assumptions in that we do not have all the figures, and these figures aren't correct, and that's part of it. They're correct as he presented it, but it takes nothing into account. It doesn't take the fund balance into, it doesn't take the raising of taxes into account, it doesn't take the accounts into whether how much we receive from the state. It does not take into account people that retire. So yes, that's a correct. But also, if you extend that out another year to a year and a half, the same thing's going to happen. So what Chris is saying, and I totally agree with Chris, this is a Band-Aid. We are not solving the problem. So in not solving the problem by saying, okay, we're going to do this and solve the problem, so we're going to, let's see, we don't have to look at it for another 4 years. And then all of a sudden, here we are, back to where we are because we didn't find a solution to the problem. Our feasibility study said that our schools are not up to capacity. So why don't we start there and for the 2021 school year, not have the 6th grade move into middle school, leave them in the elementary school. That starts to solve that problem. And you have talk in the legislative all the time, but the talk that's there now can be monumental changes as to what happens in the district. You have the governor right now dealing with the charter schools. He was not happy what happened this past summer in legislative, and he's made that a top priority. The Secretary of Ed has already went to Allentown School District, had a talk. The governor came out the next day and saying this is where I want things to go. That doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight, but why are we shutting our doors? The other thing that's happening, if you look at the PSBA bulletin on a daily basis, the one day it identified that there are 8 different pieces of legislation talking about eliminating property taxes. Is that good, bad, or indifferent? We have no idea how it's going to affect us. In fact, one of the things that it is that they're looking at eliminating property taxes by taxing the people's retirement, which they do not do now. So, you know, it's like it seems to be at the forefront more now than ever. Why would you take the step to take us out of the picture when all we're doing is putting a Band-Aid on the problem?
I'm sorry, but it's more than a Band-Aid, first off. And secondly, no one said this is a silver bullet. It's not going to solve everything, but we've got to get our expenses under control. And Ben, correct me if I'm wrong in my simple thinking on math here. You have a savings of $944. Say that's overly...
But he states that nowhere else.
I know. I'm saying, say that's too strong. Say we're at $600,000. Much more conservative than your prediction. If we would do this and save $600,000 in year 1, in year 2, our total savings would be $1.2 million plus some, correct? You save $600,000 that year. You save that same $600,000 the following year.
You have things that counteract it.
No, I know that, but people are missing how this math works. If you do for 5 consecutive years, I mean, it's going to be variability there, but that's $3 million savings, is it not? And that's conservative, and I realize that plus or minus, based on the recurring savings of the personnel, not even talking about the buildings and everything else.
Well, we know we can't furlough for 2 years, so that's not correct anymore. It's not, we don't have correct information. We're gonna vote on something that doesn't, we have no correct information.
Harriet, no business plan has perfect information.
Well, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it can be more correct than what it is now. We know that those things are gonna happen.
We've been doing this 4-year study for how many previous years now? We've been relying on this 4-year study that he's predicted here. And the one here says, I read it without any tax increase. I mean, I don't understand it. And we all know where the biggest, there are so many underlying things out there that can be determined with the governor. The biggest thing, as we know, we haven't addressed yet, we're working on it, is the salaries and the benefits in the school district. I mean, if that goes our way, it could help us greatly. But who knows how that's gonna go? This may be
So
a
stop
Band-Aid,
putting
but
the
it's
cart
gonna
before the
come.
horse.
Pardon me?
I just want to acknowledge, I acknowledged, the board has been working many years on this, very hard. I don't want to take that out of the, I don't see why though, all of a sudden, right now, it's an emergency to tie it all up right now, in the next few months. I don't understand that. We've been working on this so long, why would it just, we just say, okay, we're done?
I took the opportunity looking back through some old minutes. And the first time I could actually find where the board president at the time suggested looking at the viability to continue to operate all the elementary schools was actually in 2005. So that was the same year that we had a 22% tax increase. The same year we had a $5,000 fund balance. And we're headed back that same direction again if we don't make some changes.
So why didn't you do it, why didn't you try to fix it then? What happened?
Well, you'd have to have somebody who's on the board then.
I mean, I'm just curious, if there's been all this time.
I mean, this isn't a new idea, is my point.
Well, no, it isn't, and you know, what's really not a new idea is that it's been voted down how many times in the last how many years? How many times has it been voted down to close?
Just the one time, I
Oh,
believe. I don't think it was ever
twice.
brought up before
Well, I
to
think
close
there's
the
been at least
outlying
two.
schools.
Twice
It was
since
a
I've been on.
comprehensive plan to do it, but it was never followed through by the previous superintendent.
Well, wait, I want to clear that
But I
up, because we were misled, and the public. I was on the board when the original plans were put forward.
Right.
And one plan was recommended by a previous board member to close all the schools, and it came with a price tag of $28 million. I think you remember that. We completely just said that's not even a consideration, that we're gonna go 2-story on elementary school. We voted and approved closing one school, Nipponos. And the renovation was for that, and we even cut that back because we were running short on money. So this idea that there was a vote or a plan that was already set in place to close all 3 is completely bogus. There was never that. We voted to close one school and renovate the elementary school. So let's not get confused by what's being said as what is
Chris,
fact or not.
I disagree with you. There was a plan by Dr. Dorothy Chappelle I think she was the superintendent at the time, to proceed with the closure at a later time of the other 2 outlying schools. I believe that was on her, I don't remember a board member making that recommendation.
Well, this
I
was
think it
before
was
we
the administration at the
renovated, this
time.
was before
This
we
was prior
renovated
to
the
you.
elementary school.
You are correct.
Crabtree brought, and I think I still have the documentation actually, but they brought like 6 or 7 plans, one being requested, I believe. I know specifically the board member requested all of them being closed, and the price tag was $28 million. So how did we get away with renovating for $14 million? And now we're saying that covered all of them. I don't see how that went to half the cost in the renovation, yet we're gonna put all those kids in there. That wasn't the plan back then.
What were the student numbers back then versus now?
Well, they were higher. They were definitely higher. I mean, our trend has gone down, but it's tough to get a good picture of that because we've got kids now from different schools going to different schools by choice. And so it's hard to track what schools have lost, and what haven't.
Go back to the deficit and what makes up the deficit. What makes up the deficit? It's increase in wages and increase in benefits. I'm okay now. You look at Mr. Ender's projections, his 3-year projections, And the increases, it's all increases in wages and benefits. And these are estimates by Mr. Enders. He's estimating 3 and 4% increases in wages and maybe 5% in benefits for the next 3 years. I mean, that's his call. But a 3% increase on 17 million, 3 sevens are 21, 3 1, that's $500,000 increase. It's an arbitrary number. We're overspending in wages and benefits. There's no question about it. And we need to stop. We need to stop overspending in wages and benefits. Instead of giving 3% and 3.5% pay raises like we've done for the last 4 or 5 years, maybe we should give 0.5% or 1%.
Well, I'd like to just, I don't think you're on the right track. The problem is what we have to pay in to the state and for the retirement fund. It's at what, 34%? That's the problem. It's not what we pay our employees. It's what we have to pay the state because they haven't contributed their fair share to the retirement fund. And so they're coming back to the locals, the elected non-paid officials, to break the news to the public. They're not going to tax you at the state level, so we have to hit you here. And now what the public, some of the public is saying to our kids then. And it's all because we vote in guys at the state that won't take care of their problems. So it's, I mean, I know where you're headed with it, but it really is related to that retirement amount.
Yeah, but Chris, your retirement is based on your salary, your pay. The more your pay goes up, the more retirement the school district has to pay, correct?
Yeah, but that's a statewide system.
Right.
Right, so it's not like Jersey Shore is going to correct what's going on at the state level.
But it's still a bill that we're having to pay right now. And
Well,
that's what we need to look at, is what's our total cost for salaries and benefits for our employees across the board.
Well, I understand. I just don't want us to think a teacher that
You can't
starts
separate the two.
a teacher that starts at $45,000 is overpaid in this area. That's a professional employee with a college degree. 45 is not an unreasonable amount to expect to start. In fact, I think we're losing teachers at this point. So you know, it's this debate that could go really broad. I just wanted to throw out some things I think we should talk about before we go to the vote, and you know.
What we pay into retirement, that comes under the category of benefits. Our benefit total package, there's 12 million, and our wages is 17 million. So what's that, 29 million? 70% of the budget, the $42 million budget going into wages and benefits. And the taxpayers in this community, their average income is about $30,000. Our average salaries for our full-time employees is right around $60,000 and $40,000 in benefits. That's $100,000 we're paying out on our full-time staff. Well, the taxpayers in this community, there's some 10,000. Their income is around 30,000, but they're supporting a salary of 60,000. That's not quite right.
Well, I guess the data you're putting out, the average income is what, 33,000?
I said, I stand to be corrected. I'm saying right now that our average salary of our 200 some full-time employees is 60,000, and our average benefit for the same amount of people is 40,000. That's a total of 100,000. Ben, you can comment on that one.
Is that out of line though? Is what you see with other districts in the area? Are we out of line with districts in the area? Do you think? Or?
I can't answer that.
Because it's tough to compare against this local average when you're talking about people that have a professional degree and are teachers, and you can't compare them to somebody that would, you know, have a minimum wage job or something like that.
Well, you can't compare to just teachers when that's not all, our employees are not just teachers. We're paying the same benefits on all employees.
All 295 or whatever it is, right? If we didn't increase benefits and we didn't increase salaries, we'd have a zero deficit.
Well, yeah,
Zero deficit.
I agree. I can't disagree with you there. That's just a fact. But
benefits is a tough one because we have to pay so much into the retirement. And Ben, how much is the total amount of money paid into retirement? I think the state pays half of it and we pay the other half. And I understand somehow we have to pay $2.6 million. Is that right?
The reimbursement on retirement is based on a formula from the state, based on the date of, essentially the date of hire, it's the date of they became teachers eligible. At minimum, it's 50%. If it's before a certain date, and if it's after a certain date, it's equal to our age ratio, which right now is about 66%.
Yeah, but what's the dollar amount in your financial update that you made? Under the committed fund balance, you show 2.6 million for retirement. Explain that, please.
Well, that's how much is in savings for future retirement expenditures.
Right, does that mean that you're taking 2.6 million out of the fund balance every year to pay?
No.
How much are you, explain that one then.
That's based on board decision as part of the budget process. The retirement expenditure budget for 1920 is $5.7 million.
And how much do we have to pay? The state pays half of that, right? And we pay the other half?
Approximately, yes. For simplistic math, yes, that would be about right.
How much do the employees pay into their retirement?
It depends on when they were hired. Roughly, most of them are at 7.5%. But that's all based, that's nothing controlled by this district. I mean, that's what, it's all state driven. That's written in the Constitution. You're gonna need to get a constitutional convention together in Harrisburg to change it. So we could sit here and talk about how much employees pay all night long. You're not gonna change it.
I had a thought coming in here tonight that what we should do is look at our overspending in wages and benefits and develop options to deal with this problem head on. We have not addressed the overspending in wages and benefits and how to deal with this. And that's what we need to do. We can talk about school closures, we can talk about this, and we can talk about that. But we have failed to talk about the increase in overspending in wages and benefits and what to do about that.
Well, we are negotiating right now the contract, and that's all private stuff. It can't be let out, it's negotiation, so we are working on it.
Well, and we are dealing.
Wait a minute.
You can't discuss it in
let
public.
it out. We just let it out in the handout. Come on, Bert, right there. We're going open, we're going at public.
All right, we left it up to the president.
But we are dealing with it through wages and benefits because really the big residual savings in these closures are going to be furloughs. So, and that's directly going to reduce our wage and benefit costs. That's what happened last year. We furloughed those for $865,000, I believe, in salary savings. So we have addressed it. Last year we furloughed $865,000 in payroll. So we've already taken that bite out of the apple. We can't keep going back to that where we're going to have one teacher with 35 kids in a classroom. And that's inclusion as well. You got to remember, 40, 50 years ago, we didn't have inclusion. Now we have kids with learning disabilities that are in the classroom. So it's much harder even for a teacher now. So, I think that the wages and salaries was addressed last year with that furlough.
To come up with the deficit wage and benefit number that Mr. Enders came up with last year, okay? They was 1.3 million. What did we have to do because we didn't have the money? We didn't have the money in the budget. We had to find the money. So one of the options was to furlough staff, which was not, I don't support, that's not a good option because only maybe 10 or 15 people are the ones that get hit hard. It should be across the board cut, not just for a few people. And then what else did we do? We had a freeze. We froze everybody's salary, and except the teachers because they're under contract. And the custodial staff who have a 4-year agreement, I think they're, I don't know what the numbers are, but I know their increases are 1% or less 1%. over the 4-year agreement. So they're already sacrificing. So we went through that, and we found the money to make up this deficit that Mr. Ender had come up with wages and benefits. But now we're in 2019, 2020. We have the same deficit problem with increasing wages and benefits again. And then you look at the projections that Harry's talking about. Look at Ben's projections for the next 2 years. He's doing the same thing. 1 million increase in wages and benefits. I have a real problem with that. And it's driving us all crazy trying to find this money when we don't have it. I think we need to lower the amount of money that we're projecting in wages and benefits in the 3-year projection and bring it down closer to reality. That's it for now.
Somebody had asked early on in this conversation about what our decline in enrollment's been. I just pulled out the numbers. We've lost 122 kids in the elementary schools, K-5.
Since when?
Since 2014-15. So that's from 1327 to, like, I think 1205. If my eyes aren't focusing on my tiny numbers. So that's about a 9.2% reduction in the number of students we have. So did we have too many teachers before or too few teachers now? I mean, why would we not expect to reduce either salaries? We could have more teachers at a lower cost, keep the current level of teachers, which I think accomplishes your goal to keep that classroom size. But it's going to take a 9.2% reduction in our costs in order to make that happen. So it's got to go one way or the other.
Well, we did furlough some teachers last year, and we didn't replace
We
just one
furloughed
tonight.
last year. We furloughed 5.
But if we lost 100, how many did we lose?
There wasn't
100?
anything for last year.
I'm sorry.
I thought our total wages and salaries that we furloughed was 865,000.
I think it was closer to between 4 and 5 once we got done. About 5 sometimes, 545.
Only because this year that we had to pay them unemployment. That was factored into that.
I like to talk about enrollment since it was brought up. In my spare time, I've taken the latest numbers that we've gotten from Harrisburg. April 13th, 2019, we got an update. And the Harrisburg enrollment is broken down as follows. 5-year actual and a 10-year projection. In the 5-year actual, it goes back to 2014. It comes forward, to 2019. I just looked at the K-5 enrollment. I logged all the numbers and added up the numbers. The average was 980 students. Then I went to the first 5 years of the 10-year projection, and I did the same thing, K-5, and I added up the numbers. Guess what I got? 980. There's no increase in this 10-year period. There's no increase in enrollment in the K-5 division within our school district. So I'm saying, if you're using declining enrollment as a justification for closing these schools, forget it, it's not there. And these are the latest numbers, excuse me.
I think you're wrong.
These are the latest numbers from DPD. And then the other thing that I did, since 2016, 2017, 2018, Dr. Wendrich has been here, we've been getting monthly reports on enrollment. So I compared those numbers to PD actual and the 5-year projection. Guess what the total number that came up to? 979 average, almost the same, real close to PDE projection. So I think we have some pretty solid numbers there as far as the K-5 division is concerned.
Just, if everybody got a
Okay,
little
last
silence here, are you gonna refute those numbers? I'd like to see something in writing and just instead of just throwing numbers out there. Get something?
Yeah.
I have all the numbers
I-
right
I
here.
just-
I have, just a minute, excuse me.
He asked me
Oh, all
the
right.
question,
Right, okay, go ahead.
and I have the numbers from PDE based on the April
13th.
23rd, 2019.
Oh, that was April 13th.
No, 23rd. And again, our numbers in the elementary school from 14-15 was 1327, and in 18-19 was 1260, and they're projected for 1920 at 1209 rather, for 18-19. So there is a decline.
Well, in the paper that she gave us in August, she's showing that there's 1,256 in the elementary, and more people have come in.
This is
Some problem with that.
directly off of PDE's report.
I understand what you're
And
saying,
those
but what I'm saying
and
to
those all
you.
fall within the actual numbers, not projected numbers.
Well, I was assuming these are actual that she gave us.
No, on this number, what we report to PDE, which is a specific moment in time.
Yeah, I understand that.
Rather
But I'm
than-
saying,
I mean,
we're
you
at the
can-
same point right
You can
now.
have fluctuations, month to month as the year goes
I
by.
understand that, but you're saying it was at 1260 or whatever, but I'm saying we're there already now. I understand what you're saying, that's the actual thing in the moment of
Right.
time. But we're there right now in our elementary school.
So my point being, there is a loss of students at K to 5.
I'm not, you just tell me it was 1260, this is 1256.
Through the end of year numbers. So what we report to PDE. I mean, you have to pick a specific date every year, not
I
a random
understand.
date every year.
So this August is a random date, is that what you're telling me? She's
Yeah.
gonna give us correct information when she gives it to us?
No, it's correct for that specific date. But if you're gonna look at long-term numbers, you've gotta pick a date, either first day of the year, last day of the year. It's gotta be consistent.
And what did
from
they
one
tell
year
us
to-
it was
from
last
one
year?
To the next. I'm not sure whether, Dr. Wonder, do you know whether these are the first day or last day?
Those are from the October 1st PIMS enrollment information that's pulled every
So
year.
these are October 1st.
Every October.
Well, they all are October 1st.
Yes.
Everyone you had one year is October
Right.
1st.
Correct.
So what was it last year? I said, yeah, for elementary.
Last year for elementary was 1209 for 18-19. And in 14-15, it was 1327.
Also, there's a big jump there for some reason.
So, I mean, that's the actual numbers. And that's not the projected PDE numbers.
No, I understand what you're
We
telling
know
me.
they can vary.
Okay, Craig, I'm using the same
K to
document.
5.
I'm using the same document that you have,
Yeah.
and these are the numbers. I've taken the numbers out of this document, and I listed the kindergarten 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and by year, 2014 through, 2014 to 2019. Okay. Here's a total for by 2014. 985, 2015,
Well,
903.
we could debate this all night long, but
Yeah,
our
but
30-minute
you're saying, Mr. Allen, that my numbers are not correct, and I'm just clarifying that my numbers are correct.
Well, we can.
And I'm taking
we can
them
go
right out of
back
the
and-
same document you're taking them out
We
of.
can go back and.
And I
verify
spent a
that.
lot of time figuring this out, and you haven't spent any time figuring it out.
I haven't, I haven't spent any time doing this, creating a graph for every grade over the entire period. There's about 10 pages worth of data,
I'm just going back, I'm
rather
going
than a
back
few notes
5
on a piece
years,
of paper.
I'm going back 5 years and coming forward 5 years. I'm just in the 10-year period.
Mr. Allen, is the data that you're looking at, which is the same data, is that giving us a K to 6 or just a K to 5? Because I know he's only doing K to 5. Is that where the difference in the?
Mine is K to 6.
Okay, so
Mine's
that's
K
where,
to 5.
so that's where the
We
difference
were
in
looking
the,
at that cutoff in the optional plan.
so that's the difference in the numbers, okay? Because it doesn't make sense if you're looking at the same papers.
But anyway, our time is up for debate on the closure.
We didn't even talk about the closure.
No,
What are
that's-
you talking about? I want to know, my question is, why do we have net recurring costs for all options 1, 2, and 3, and then we have net recurring savings, options 4 and 5. Do we not have any net recurring costs under options 4 and 5?
When the committee put together this chart, it was decided at the point in time when we put it together that there was going to be no consideration of one-time cost into this in any of the plans due to a couple of the plans having one-time costs that could not even be even remotely close.
I'm not even talking about one-time costs. I'm talking about net recurring costs. There are none, is what I want specified. For those two options, there is no net recurring cost. Is that what we're supposed to assume from this
Cost or
chart?
net cost?
I think the number that he's putting there is the recurring,
Savings.
whether it's a savings or a cost, the combined is the net.
That's not how it's stated.
Well, but the combined of the two.
But why is it
net.
stated differently? Savings versus cost, why? Why would it not be
Because-
across the board the same?
Because 3 of the plans are an increase in cost and 2 of the plans are a decrease.
And my
in cost.
question is, are there net recurring costs? That's all I want to know.
If you
Is
add-
that what this is?
If you add the increases, whatever increases we might have, and then any decreases.
That's
the
fine, Craig, but
increase
why
for
is
the
it
first
stated
3
differently, is my question. I don't understand. I want to know what the, you guys have not,
If you want to state it the same, we'd have to give it a negative number.
you have not provided to this point, and I'm trying to make a decision about how I want to vote on this. You have not provided, with the exception of, moving a playground cost to either one of these options. So you're saying, I want clarity right now, that what you're saying, if I'm gonna make a decision on these options, that there's not cost affixed. And you're telling me that the cost savings exceeds the cost
The cost
lost,
increase,
the
right.
lost cost. So that's what you're going with.
Right.
But we haven't seen any tangible numbers. All I know is a playground movement is all we have seen as far as a cost for closing these schools. Is that correct?
So, the board update, I don't believe it was last Friday, but the Friday before, I provided to the board the detail of the savings projected that I had presented on
Right.
August the 12th. That was per Mr. Schweitzer's
Right.
request. That's where the first year savings of $672,000 comes from.
Right.
In that, you will see cost for unemployment compensation, you'll see costs to close and consolidate the buildings, and you'll see costs to operate the building.
So I am insulted as a board member, I'm just gonna say it, that this is the only, we're gonna base a decision on this little flimsy piece of paper.
So,
We're supposed to be having a discussion on closure tonight, and no one seems to care whether we have a discussion on closure, I guess, because we haven't had one. We just have everybody stating their position, which is fine, but I can't make an educated decision on 1, 2, just how it's gonna be configured and these little flimsy numbers. I can't. And this is what we have to discuss. So, hey, that's fine. I'm just saying, I would really appreciate a more in-depth breakdown. If you want me to vote in a certain direction, or you want me to be informed of my decision, this is a joke. An absolute joke. And
I would actually like to say something, if I can, at this point in time. I've been listening to what all the board members have to say, and I'm totally perplexed about just some of the comments that have been made tonight by the board members concerning having a discussion. I don't think, first of all, that any of this is a joke, and I take this totally seriously. You're talking about making decisions that are going to affect not just in the next few years, but could affect generations to come. So I take this very seriously. And, the question that remains in my mind is not as to the school closure in essence, but to what or whom we're going to be investing our resources in. Are we talking we want to dump all of our resources into buildings, or do we want to take our resources and use it for people? students, teachers, our community. Yes, I understand buildings are important, but those buildings that we're talking about need major improvements and upgrades, which are imperative to run those buildings in the future. I think, we're at a crossroads, and I believe we have to make a decision to consolidate or do the repairs and renovations that, and if we do those things, you have to take into consideration, which some of the board members brought up tonight. What about declining enrollment and utilization of space? I recall specifically off that Crabtree, that gunman quota, especially out at Southeastburg. It's only being used, the space is being utilized, I think he said 51%. That number, anybody in their right mind would not take their money in their own home and only use it 50% to capacity of what it's worth. Basically what I'm saying is we have to heat and maintain those buildings and do all those things that we do inside of our own homes. It's like taking half of our money and throwing it into the trash can when that space is not being utilized at all. You can't just heat some of those rooms or maintain some of them. You have to use the entire building. You have to do that for the whole building. And those things are, I think, what weighs heavy on my mind for the fact that you're going to, I heard what Mr. Young said when he first came to the podium, and, I know he gave his opinion that, he would never close the school based on finances. I totally have to disagree. I'm more concerned about the future of students than I am about the future of actual buildings in themselves. Yes, I know there's a lot of emotions and memories and things that are tied to those specific places. But the renovations that were done in the past, prior to me being on the board at JSASD, was to accommodate all of those elementary schools to be closed in the future if need be. The space is there. It was designed for that purpose, which would provide excellent security, close emergency services, and even a sense of cohesiveness that, from what I've heard, it tends to be, I think, lingering out there in some of the minds of the teachers that our elementary schools are somewhat competitive one with another or compared one to another. And that would totally eliminate those issues as well. So the money in our capital project fund is going to be drained if we are going to maintain those buildings. And I feel like this really comes down more to money than it even does classroom size. For the sole fact that, no, I don't want to see 30 kids plus in classes. I know that that's really not the goal of any of us being there. But in saying, when I say about, classroom sizes, we cannot predict what the fluidity, like Kelly had said, of who comes and who goes. The face of public education at this particular time is moving towards free choice. And whether people want to use charter schools, homeschool, cyber schools, private schools, or even pay to send their kids to some other public school, we can't predict that. And honestly, that's the freedom of each and every one of us. So we have to go with what we can only see in front of us at this point in time, but yet somewhat have a vision for the future of the students and what's to come. And maintaining those buildings at the present time in this situation, I have to agree with Dr. Pecchia from the very start. And we have to get ahead in where we are in spending our money. And I can guarantee one thing, if we don't do anything, nothing's going to change. And if we keep doing the same thing, we'll keep getting the same results. So we need to collaborate together and make a wise decision, not concerning maybe so much buildings, but concerning the students and the direction of what's to come in our community concerning the buildings.
We're gonna close this, or we have some more time for comments?
I would, you know,
We can take more time, but we planned last week for 30 minutes. I think we're right around 40 minutes or more, 45, 50 minutes right now. So,
Can I just make one comment? I mean, I'm not gonna go through the savings that were gonna occur by option 5, what we saved in Nipponos, but when we closed Nipponos, you moved all those kids over there were taken out of their home school, they were moved into Jersey Shore Elementary, elsewhere. If we go option 1, 2, and 3, we're gonna take those kids again that have been moved from Nipponos to the elementary school in Jersey Shore. You're gonna move them to Salisbury or Avis. Secondly, the busing, you're gonna take kids in Jersey Shore that can walk to school, and you're gonna bus them to Salisbury or Avis. I mean, there's a couple other, I'm sure there's other things that we haven't thought about yet, and we have been discussing a lot of these pros and cons, cost and savings over the last 2 years, so, I mean,
So therefore, we need more time for discussion, and it doesn't have to be tonight.
I didn't understand what you said, Mary.
Therefore, we need continued discussion, and it doesn't all have to be tonight.
We need to bring it to a head one way or the other, too.
well, we need
Well, I agree with you, but
bring
we don't
this-
have all the, Kelly's right, we don't have all the information we should have to make an intelligent decision.
I think we do.
Ben has presented all the information
we
thoroughly.
just,
With all these caveats.
It's never gonna be an absolute.
everybody here has had a chance to speak, I think, almost.
Sorry.
Anybody that hasn't had a chance to speak, let's open it up to somebody that hasn't spoken so
I would
far.
like to see a little bit more time next meeting. I won't be here for the next meeting, but one of the meetings to do a little bit more discussion and hash this out before we make a vote. I think we need more discussion, and so everybody understands everything. We should all understand it, but I think we need some more discussion. I think some people are uneasy about this, and I think we just need to do some further discussion. We really have not had a lot of discussion. We did last meeting and this meeting, and these are the only 2 meetings we've really discussed. We had presentations, but we really have not had discussion. And I think we need just a little bit more discussion. And that's my personal feeling on it.
Okay, and I think we have had a lot of data proposed to us by Ben and others over the course of time. This was not intended to be the entire decision-making document tonight. It was a snapshot of kind of the highlights. So what I think I'll ask is would anybody like to, and I hate to put this on Ben, like to see Ben provide us with, from square one, all of the various documents that we've had an opportunity for ourselves to look at, so we can study the data.
I have no desire to have
One by
it, to
one.
request for Ben to go through that all again. You know, if they feel confident that they've given us adequate information, then so be it. It's done.
One thing I would like to see though is for the middle school, what renovations cost would be to get that for the 4th, 5th graders. If there's any renovations that we need to do with lockers, restrooms, I'd like to see what that total cost would be.
We had the 5th graders in there when we did the Jersey Shore. Elementary,
Well, we didn't have the
so-
4th, so I just like to see what that, and that would be a one-time cost.
Okay.
Most likely, and I'd just like to see what that cost would be.
I'd like to request that we get the scores that have come out now this year on the elementary schools. So, because the hearings were held last year, and part of my debate about this is the performance when you have the smaller class sizes in the small school setting. And so, since we can't use last year's scores, I'd like to see if we could get this year's scores out and enter that into the discussion too.
But I'm not sure if the scores account for just the classroom size in and of itself. Honestly.
Well, nothing counts in and of itself, it's a
Right,
fact.
but I'm not sure what that can tell you, because there's so many other factors. If you look at the cost of living in Jersey Shore and the education level of the residents living in the outlying, there is a difference.
Well, that's all I'm requesting.
I just don't know if it tells us much.
I'm not asking for a validity from a pit. I think that that's something though that is put out there, reported by our district every year. It's important.
But we'll put this on, it's been requested that we put it on for additional discussion at our next meeting, and we'll do that. But next meeting will be 30 minutes, and that's it, we're not gonna take an hour. If people don't want to study the data that's been provided for us over the course of time, then.
I hope that implication is not directed toward me,
Well, I
sir.
mean, no, I'm just saying, if people
Seriously.
want to look at it, fine. If they don't want to look at it, you want to trust what they have, then trust what they have.
Well, no, but for instance, the hearings were held, and the first set of hearings, part of my whole point in debate was our building scores versus, when the small school setting versus the big. And this past year, we had the hearings, and we didn't have scores that were accurate, so I couldn't even participate in the hearings to that end. So I would like to at least have an opportunity to see how our buildings performed this past year. And I think that information is available now. So.
Not yet, not yet. It will be coming out
Okay.
soon. As soon as it comes out, we give it to you in a
Okay.
presentation.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is there any reason we could not have a special meeting on a Tuesday night after the board meeting, or rather than taking up a board meeting with this, and maybe dedicate a full hour if we need it to this issue? I would not be opposed to that, rather than putting it into a regular board meeting.
I'm not usually the one that can't be here, so.
You want to have it on a Thursday night, that's why.
That's up to the rest of the board, we want to make a commitment.
So
to have everybody
you're
here.
looking for an additional work session, is that what you're saying here?
Yes,
Okay.
we've had them in the past, I mean, just for this topic, maybe. Rather than limiting 30 minutes to it if somebody
Okay.
needs more.
Why don't we try to schedule that rather than have an additional discussion at the next board meeting? We'll send out, see who's free on what evenings and try to maximize our participation in that way with a special meeting. Anybody opposed to that?
I don't know how much time I'll have to give. I'd probably miss out on that discussion.
If you're not available, I have no objection to a regular meeting either. I just thought it might be a little easier, give us more time if we had.
Yeah, go ahead and
work
do it. I
session.
was just saying, is I have a tough time making extra meetings at this point. At least in the next few months, it's gonna be tough.
You just put the audio on.
Right, I
in your
could do
production
this.
room.
You'll hear the machines running.
So what's consensus, a special meeting or more discussion at a regular meeting? Ms. Thomas, do you have a preference?
I think I'd like to see them more time. I think a special meeting would be good if it works. But you're gonna send out dates, right? Like a
Right.
Tuesday nights and
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
I agree.
Special meeting? Kelly?
I don't have a preference, whichever works. Michelle?
Michelle?
I'm fine with having an extra work session. My one thought is possibly it would be something to accommodate everybody, to have it an hour ahead on a Monday night meeting. So instead of starting our meeting at 7, we would have a work session from 6 to 7, if people could make it versus
No,
a
people
different
work.
evening.
That doesn't work for some of the folks that have regular jobs to get here by 6 o'clock.
Limit you to an hour. A special meeting doesn't limit you to an hour.
Karen, you special meeting? Merle?
I'd like work session, I'd like to continue this discussion in public so that the public can listen.
Well, special meeting is
A work session is public.
A special meeting would be in public.
I know, but I want to say work session. Okay.
So if it's not one of the regular meetings that were scheduled, then it's a special meeting.
Okay, special meeting, work session is a special meeting, that's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we have, the majority are in favor of a special meeting for this. Harry already said, he suggested it. to
I
begin
was
with.
hoping you'd ask me.
Well,
Yes.
as long as we don't have it on Thursday, right?
I don't care. I'll try and make the.
I wrote your initials down anyway. So it looks like a special meeting is that I'll send out an email or have the administration send out an email to start looking at some dates on your calendars. With that, we'll we'll close the discussion for this evening. Moving on to courtesy of the floor, session 2, and this is whatever's on your mind.
Taylor Calhoun, Avis Borough. I have a couple questions here, and I'm going to refer to the Crabtree feasibility study. The final plan con design approval forms reported a capacity of 925 bodies for the elementary school. PDE capacity for kindergarten classrooms is 25 students. However, the district goal is 20 students. There are 5 kindergarten classrooms. Therefore, the current capacity is 900. One classroom is used for Head Start and is not given a capacity. One reading room is underutilized and is given the capacity of classroom for 25 students. My question now is, how many classrooms are actually in the elementary school? Anybody know?
59. 33 in JSASD.
I don't wanna give you an
Oh,
answer. We'll look
okay.
into it and give you
They'll
the
have to-
answer.
They'll
Yeah.
have to tell you, but that's what it is.
I don't wanna do that off the top of my head.
900 students is the capacity, and you divide that by the maximum of 20, you will need 45 classrooms to accommodate these students. So that's just kind of a feel that if you close both outlying schools, this is what you're gonna need to accommodate K through 2. The numbers, looking at the projections that PD had posted for this year, K was at 167, you would need 9 classrooms. First grade was at 173, you would also need 9 classrooms. And grade 2 was at 176, so you would need another 9 classrooms. That's 27 classrooms. So just kind of, are we at 45 or are we at 27? What do we have here? I am in complete agreeable that we need time for facts, appraisals, etc. Kelly had referred to the only numbers that we have seen were moving of playground equipment, and I concur. I would like to see the cost of removing fiber optics from Sal and Avis, as this was an issue earlier this year for removing them from Nipponos. I would also like to see in the proposed plans, who are the teachers that you are willing to move to the outlying schools, the special ed teachers, etc. And I just want to conclude that Mr. Frable does have his heart in the right place. The children in our district are the most important part. Their relationship with their teacher is what's going to give them the head on everybody else in this area, in this region, in this state, to make a better society in the future.
Thank you.
This is Kevin, just to clarify the fiber optic issue I think you referenced, the board asked for a quote on the cost to remove the fiber optics that's run out to Nipponos. We provided that information to them. They did a cost benefit study and made a decision to let the fiber optic remain. So that line has been sitting there, run to that, but it's not attached to the building, but it's run to the valley. It's been there since the building shut down. It will probably be there until we can get somebody to purchase it.
Thank you very much.
So there was no cost to the district to remove it. That's never been removed. It's still sitting there.
I'd just like to clarify one thing. First of all, everyone's entitled to their opinion. The lady that spoke here on the phone, the board member, she has to realize we cannot violate state law in making our decision. I think there is a solution here. I look at this chart here of teachers' salaries and so forth, and I say to myself, my God, maybe I ought to come out of retirement. I mean, I can't believe this. I'm not saying the teachers aren't worth it, don't get me wrong. They work hard, they're dedicated, they do a good job. And it's frustrating many times to you people. As I said before, there is a solution. maybe freezing salaries as the representing body for the teachers, requested the possibility to the teachers that maybe we freeze salaries for a limited period of time. I don't know. I don't know the solution.
That's already
I
done.
can tell you that, that's already been proposed.
Okay, it has? Well, that's good. I know that you have a very difficult job. And I just pray to God that we make the right decision for our students. Thank you.
My name's Tracy Kemmer. I'm here for a whole different reason. I'm here to just follow up with Dr. Dady had presented to you that we would like to place a memorial for our son Casey, who passed away. He was a 2009 graduate and football player during his high school years, and we'd like to place a memorial at the football field in his remembrance. Casey's football had a significant part of Casey's life. He had a love and passion for the game. He had dignity, perseverance, and leadership on and off the field. And I know if Casey was here today, there's no doubt he would be giving back to the Jersey Shore football program. And this on August 14th, it was 10 years that the 10-year anniversary. So as a sort of commemoration, we would like to place this memorial there in his remembrance, because we know it would be like a way of showing a fulfillment that he wasn't able to do, and giving back to the Jersey Shore football program. Over these past 10 years, we have been giving to the football program in monetary ways, gift cards for the Sticker Star program. We have been giving speed shoots, all kinds of ways. All the decorations you see on the fencing around, we've donated towards that. So we just feel like we could give a football award out every year at the football banquet in his memory. So we just felt that this was just a follow-up to sort of fulfill that whole 10 years that we've been doing this, and trying to live his legacy and keep that memory going on. And this is more of a something that would be a more permanent structure. It would not need to be maintained by anybody. We did go to the football field. We looked the location over as far as, if it would be in the way of things or people or what's going on and off the football field. We felt we chose the proper place for that. And I just feel like too, I hope that you would give that some consideration in the fact that, I know there are other memorials around the properties of the Jersey Shore School District, but I just feel that every child is different and every student needs to be represented in the way that their life was lived. And so I think that, that just gives everybody a chance to make those children, memorialized in their own unique way. Not everybody is the same, and I feel that, having those around the district and more than one area would be a great thing to consider. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fort Francis, 1425 Locust Street, just catching up in total business. First item I would like to refer to was what we were presented at the last meeting on the savings on the Nipano School with a breakdown and so on. I'm disagreeing with that. I did some research and study on that, and we cannot save or we cannot claim any savings on Nipanos based on the information I've gathered, based on the fact that budgeting and accounting, et cetera, if you do something that creates an additional cost, then you have to factor that in, and you had no savings on this particular item because when this was done, we incurred an additional cost at the elementary school, I think maybe $4 or $5 million, something like that. So based on the information I've garnered from 3 different people, that there is no savings relative to Nipanos, and there never will be, and we got to work this debt off, and when we get that in 2030, you might want to consider we have savings at that time. So we can take that off the table as far as savings concerned. Second item I want to go back to was I got a response from the information officer when I asked the information officer, did the board approve the president of our school district to serve as the chief negotiator on the contracts? My response was 5 days and 30 days to go on out due to the fact there's no document to support your request. And the document that would have supported my request and answered my question, but my question's been answered by this letter, the document would have been the minutes of the meeting when the board approved the president serving as president of that board. That was the document which supported my request. So in my opinion, he has not been approved. Next item is relative to the negotiating committee and the breakdown of the negotiating committee. How many members are now serving on the negotiating committee? That's a pretty easy question to answer.
We have 4 members and 1 alternate.
4 members and 1, where are the 4 members serving on the
ones that were named in the evening that we...
I know they are, I know the names, so on and so forth. You're including the president and one of the 4 members.
Yes.
And also the alternate. Does the alternate get a vote?
Not unless there's somebody absent. The alternate does not attend at all unless someone else can attend.
Are they there for every meeting?
No.
They're not there?
Nope.
So you have 4 meetings, including yourself?
We have 4 people who meet every time that we've met.
You and 3 other members, correct?
3 other members, correct.
All right. So I'm saying that this is not correct. I want to read just one sentence in this board policy. Board policy states, board members who shall not be committee members but who attend committee meetings may not vote on committee matters. How does that work? You are an ex officio member to that board. Right. Are you a voting member of that committee?
I'm a voting member.
I disagree with that. I don't think you can be a voting member. I think the board needs to address that issue before we have any further negotiations on contracts, because we're going to get in trouble if we don't straighten that out. Thank you. Now,
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah.
Can I? I don't know.
Yeah.
No.
I'm answering your question.
No, you can't ask him that. No. Oh, yeah, you can, I guess, yeah.
Clarify, but I don't think we vote in the committees.
No.
We don't vote in the committee meetings.
That's correct. That's absolutely
But you were asking
correct.
him that. We don't vote in the committee meetings.
That's key, though. That's key. You're going to do something in that committee. You're going to approve, or you're going to form a consensus, or you're going to bring something back to the main board to vote on. I understand the committees and how they work. This goes further beyond this, yeah.
I just want to clarify that.
Yeah. We got to clarify whether the president's sitting right. I think the board does have to approve him sitting on there. I think you need to delve into that.
The board president appoints members of all committees and can appoint himself as the committee chair.
No, he can't. No, he can't. No.
The solicitor has already had a conversation with Mr. Francis about this. I don't know that this is something we need to continue to hash out. If the board has specific questions, I'd be glad to answer in an executive session.
My hearing aids aren't in. I understand the president's authority, and it is his authority to appoint all committees. And it's also his responsibility when he's appointing committees, when he chooses each committee and chooses them, that he knows the members of that committee, and he almost, prior to that, on everything I've done and understand, that he talks to those people and understands that one of them will accept the chairmanship of that committee. In this particular case, when it was not decided who was going to be chairman of the committee, he put it to the committee. And they refused. And then it's turned over to the committee to appoint somebody, not the president. That's up to the committee then. It's out of his hand once he's appointed that committee. So this hasn't been done properly.
And Mr. Pecky, can you describe how the committee
In the first meeting of the committee, The committee members appointed Mr. Allen as the chair of the committee.
Can't do it. Can't do it. It was up to the chairman. It was up to the chairman. I understand how the chairman appoints all these committees. I understand this right down the line. And it's the chairman's responsibility to appoint a committee. And it's up to the committee to appoint their chairman.
They did.
It's not up to the president of the board to pick
No,
a
it
chair.
wasn't him.
That's
It
what
was
I'm-
the committee.
Let me finish. Let me finish. Then it was put to the committee. It was put to the committee, and nobody made a motion, nobody made a point to elect a committee based on the 3 members. Then it was my understanding then it was said, well then by the president, well then I guess I'll have to be the spokesperson for this. That doesn't work.
That's, your time is up, but that's not how it occurred, so.
It is. It's wrong.
Mr. Smith responded to your concerns at the last meeting. So, Mr. Smith responded to your concerns.
Well, that's another thing, Mr. Allen. How you and I know each other, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever. Now, you know just as well as I do. The solicitor works for the school board. The solicitor's responsibility is to defend you, he's to defend the rest of the board and protect the board. That's what he's there for. He's there to advise you on parliamentary matters and just advise you. And you're supposed to make the decisions. He doesn't make those decisions. And it's also not the responsibility of the solicitor. He's not supposed to address me. He works for me. He's not supposed to direct me. He's supposed to direct.
Your time has expired.
He's supposed to direct you, and then you talk to me. He's not supposed. He knows he's not supposed to talk to me. We got to do it right, people. I'm tired.
Your time has expired, please.
Well, you got the message.
He's from Bob Pryor, from Township, 8.5 minutes.
Thank you. Take it out on the pen.
Anyway, I'm just trying to stick to
You're welcome,
minutes.
Mr. Francis, don't tell me I cut you off all the time now.
Thanks. Hey, you don't the grocery store. You're pretty nice in the grocery store.
I have the floor.
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask the superintendent a question?
No.
I'd just like to know if the class sizes went, or the student population went up or down further this year.
Student enrollment? Our
Enrollment.
enrollment is down.
Down again.
Yes.
I'll find out the exact number later. Thank
Sure.
you. I want everybody to remember the whole purpose of these discussions was bringing down the deficit and also the declining school population. And as you said, it continues to decline. And when I was in school, my first grade class was 38 kids. We didn't have whiteboards, we didn't have computerized tablets, we didn't have any technology like that. We did have blackboards, and we did have hardcover books. We had one teacher, we had no aides, and I think we did pretty well. Now, second, concerning the contract, I think the board's looking at realistic figures here. And I thank you for that, the negotiating committee. Every past teacher's contract, it seems, the educators loosen their belts and the taxpayers tighten theirs. It's long past time that the Jersey Shore Teachers Union salaries be brought more in line with other educators in districts throughout Lake County. It makes absolutely no sense that the district with one of the lowest economies has the highest school tax millage and the highest teacher salaries in the county and in many other districts statewide. Now, concerning school closures, I'm asking, I mean, politics is politics, but I guess I won't finish that. I'm asking, please don't make your decision personal. If you have spouses, children, or other relatives working or attending school in the districts, remember your duty is to serve all the students. You got to make sure they have as much opportunity as possible. And the taxpayers, you just can't keep raising taxes, like I said. You got to bring the deficit down. And some people argue, well, closing a building is not going to do that. Well, like heck it isn't. When we close Nippenose, that's reoccurring savings. If we want to close the school, we'd be putting that money into those schools right now.
and we'd really be hurting even more. So use your common sense and remember the oath of office you took. It's not about you, it's about the kids and the taxpayers. They're paying every bill, so I'm just asking you to think about that. Think about honesty and integrity and do your job. Thank you.
Carol Long, Porter Township. I really hope you're not gonna kick the can down the road again on this. This is nothing new. It's been going on for years. It rips the community apart, rips families apart. It's like, make a decision and live with it. And I have an opinion, this is just my opinion, but I don't mean to call out any board members, but it's my understanding that, if I'm wrong, tell me, but do we have a board member that has a wife teaching at Avis? And if we do, that board member should abstain from voting whether the school should close, because I don't think they can logically make a decision based on what's best for the district.
Wow.
Am I wrong?
You are wrong.
You are wrong.
You are wrong.
Okay, okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, that's fair, because I don't think if somebody had a spouse or somebody working for the district that they could make a good decision that would be best for the students and all concerned, because it would affect their house.
We have several people on this board that do have spouses that work in the district. Why are we even entertaining this?
I don't understand
It's
why
inappropriate.
why are we singling out board
Well,
members
she
from the
didn't
public?
single anybody out, she asked a question. She didn't
I'm
ask who it
asking
was.
because I don't know.
She asked if she was correct.
Right, I don't know, so I'm asking, people talk around town, okay? I don't know, I live in this town, I don't know everything that goes on, I don't know what everybody's jobs are. I would just like to see some common sense. Just common sense. And I'll pray for every one of you. Thank you.
Bruce Rogers, 940 Wells Road. It becomes obvious that it's a really difficult decision. I appreciate the decision you folks have. For myself, I'm not an educator, but I have worked here a long time. My main concern and perspective is the consideration of eliminating this building. For the last 20 years, I'll say we as the district, we as the maintenance department, worked to get the building, and I think it probably runs close to 100% efficient. And the floor space is probably used close to 100% efficiently. And the time spent in-house, which there was a lot of it, was time that was taken away from educational support to achieve this. If we were to abandon this building and start that process all over again someplace else, I think it would be ridiculous, just from my experience. Been through 7 or 8 major renovations in the school district, and the numbers that you get on paper, the contracts and the estimates, they don't reflect all of the extra expense that goes into your personnel, bringing this building back to the point where it is someplace else. And that time and expense and resources in-house is time and resources that could be spent for educational purposes. So I guess I'm just making the point, and it is a difficult, but this is a building, when you look at the feasibility study, it shows it needed 3 rooftop units. Maybe there's only, it showed 4, I think 1 was replaced, but 3 or 4 rooftop units, usable space, compared to if you decide to hang on to Avis. And the question I have is, when you talk about the cost of closing or keeping Avis, are you including that $7 or $8 million in the feasibility study to renovate it if we keep it long term? I haven't seen that figure included in that number. And when we talk about Nipponos, had we kept it, it would have had to have been renovated at some point, probably for the same number of money. So that's a fact of savings Excuse me. But I just want to make that point for this building. I say I was integral in the development of where it is and what it does for the district and its efficiency, and to disrupt this, move it, and go through that whole process again is going to be disruptive to the whole district. And that will be time lost, it can be time put in, and the technology in here, the expense of moving that technology just to abandon this building, that money could instead be spent on improving the technology from this point. So I'm just trying to make the point that to abandon this building, you're throwing away a lot of money in progress, and with Avis or Saladaysburg, whether or not it's deemed necessary to keep them, you have to look at what the cost of upgrading those buildings' mechanical systems are that's shown in the feasibility study. Other factors that affect it, any increased cost from whatever we do does affect the families and the children in this district, because their parents will have to pick up that cost of whatever decisions are made here. And oftentimes it's retired people like myself. Well, I'm doing okay, but there's a lot of families struggling to make ends meet that have the kids in the school.
Mr. Rogers, if you could kind of wrap it up, you've exceeded your time.
Okay.
Thanks.
I thought it was 8 minutes.
Only for Mr. Francis and only tonight.
Now, just generally that point that this building is efficient. If it was the old Broad Street building, we came over here, it made sense. At this point, this building's not really costing us anything, but it would be a big cost factor. They estimate maybe $2 or $3 million to redo this building somewhere else. That's kind of my point. Thanks for your effort. It is a difficult decision to say the least.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Walt, Anthony Township. So you borrowed years ago $4 million for Saladaysburg, which is not paid off yet, and that is giving something to our students. As you've seen from probably Dr. Dady and my plans, you do not need a major renovation to move the central administration to your school. Mr. Anders, I sent an email to the board, if you could look at that at some point and just provide me with an answer. Your cost savings for Nipponos, what you provided in February of last year till fall of this year, completely different numbers. Every line item, you provided a different number last year in February until now, and your savings is $100,000 more now than last year in February. So that was off your FAQ. I sent that to you on the board. It just doesn't make sense to me. Hey, look, you added at least 4 classrooms, hallway space, and a gymnasium, as Mrs. Stemler said, to make room for those kids at Nipponos. That's $250 square foot. That is $2.5 million. And that, folks, based on your debt service, is 8.6%, which means that you are paying $250,000 per year, plus your charter school losses, which at best, given Dr. Wenner all the leeway in that, is at least $184,000 ongoing from the Nipponos closure, $455,000 first year. So you total those up, and you're at $453,000, or $430 some odd thousand, and the savings that he projected last year were $453,000. So you're saving about $16,000 until your debt service is paid off. That's it. At that point, you will have recurring savings. Now, I'm not here to cast blame you close Nipponos, because you had an space issue, right? And that's how it's chose to go with that, and that's in the past. So moving forward, look, we're at tunnel vision right now. You got to look forward. So, question for you or Dr. Wenner, look, you're looking at an online school, JSASD online, in a blended school model. Will we have more students sitting in schools or less at that point? As years ago, less, right, everybody? That will lead to less students in our schools. So, regardless if you close schools now, and we'll talk about utilization, as that progresses over the next decade and a half, and you're not going to stop it. Your high school is at 73% utilization, all right? You're going to lose students. And even if you move the 8th graders up there, if you look at the PDA projections in 2026, you're going to lose 186 students from 7 to 12. You are going to be at 60% utilization a decade from now at the high school. Then what are you going to do? We're going to close this building, as Dr. Wendrick said July of last year, and we're going to move it admin in there. So let's look forward and make those decisions now and not harm our students. Because look, our principals at the middle school have something they tell our students. Are you part of the solution or part of the problem? And you know there's a crisis right now. Mental health, social, emotional. Our middle school principals are putting programs in place. These superintendents are putting programs in place because there's a crisis across our country. And you are either making a decision now to be part of the solution or part of the problem. There's never easy answers, right? And you watch the news and there's bad stuff. It wasn't because people purposely made the world a worse off place. It's because they sat in tough seats like you're sitting in, and they took the wrong fork in the road. There are no silver bullets, right? There are no silver linings. But we either have to honor the fact that it's not about buildings, it's about configuration. It's about providing. Just like when you close in, still pay 5. It's not the same in a K-2. Look at the research, look at the data. Use your common sense, right? When you lose connection in our young children, what we're trying to do now in middle school and protect those kids, social, emotional, mental health, it's going to be worse. You're going to be part of the problem. We need to be part of the solution. It should not be an option because that's the wrong direction. And it's a temporary fix. Our enrollment has dropped. It's below PDE's projections, correct? That is true. That's because parents have choice. When you take the most drastic approach and close your schools, they have shown us they have choice in what they do with it. When you take the most drastic choice, you are going to lose the most. You have the most to lose at that point. You take the least drastic option, you have the most to gain. And those charter school numbers will come back to influence what we're doing here.
Mr. Wall, can you wrap it up? Your 3 minutes is expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Justin, I reviewed your email. As I presented to the board at the last meeting, when I presented the information at the last meeting, I stated that I was utilizing the information that Adrian provided to the board at the Nivenos hearing. My focus was not on the financial figures, but more on the positions, and the positions that Dr. D and I reviewed, we believe are the positions that were eliminated. The 2018 figures in the FAQ was an attempt by myself and Dr. Dady to try to recreate those dollar amounts. I honestly, we were drawing off of some old historical information. I would struggle in trying to get them, so when I presented the information last meeting, we pulled the information right off of the school closure. So that's the difference in those two numbers.
Appreciate the clarification. And if I may take 10 more seconds of your time, because there's another point I wanted to make. You can balance, not completely, but you can better balance your class size and outlying buildings when you provide choice, even if that means they transport themselves. Because we have provided choice, starting with Dr. Chappelle with a letter to aid the students, inviting everybody that wanted to come to JSC. And it's funny, I used to ask FAQ questions, get them put online. When I asked that FAQ question, I got a private email to answer that from our superintendent. We don't want people to know that they can have that choice. I didn't know what it was going to be like going to middle school, honestly, the way I speak. But I was welcomed with open arms, and there were several teachers there that had big questions and are interested in sending their kids to the outlying buildings. And so that discrepancy in class sizes can be addressed without consolidation. Thank you.
Okay, the board will now go into executive session for legal purposes, and we'll be coming back out in personnel, I guess. When we come out, there'll be no additional business.